And welcome to the Midwest Ag Summit Studio. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with Bridgette Readel for Weather and Ag in Focus, and want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. We got temperatures right around 70 degrees out there, some high clouds, and some thicker clouds will be moving in from the southwest as some rain is currently ongoing, albeit light, from about Ashley through Ellendale, moving northeastward towards the FM area. So, Bridgette, you're out and about again. Boy, you just never stay in one place. Although I know you would have liked to stay where you were yesterday for a couple more days and do live shows from there.
It was working out pretty nice over there, I thought.
Yes,
So I really didn't complain too much.
It was.
No, yesterday it was excellent. And again, a big thank you to Rookery Rock Winery for having us over and being able to show off what's going on in their orchard and vineyard, but also then sample some of their product for sale. And Dean, I sent a bottle back to the studio for you. If it arrived or did not, that's not my fault.
It did. Well, it did.
Okay.
I checked this morning when I came in and it wasn't there. I said, somebody must have polished it off. But it was there this afternoon. So thank you. I am actually looking forward to trying that. That sounds absolutely delicious. It really does. Oh.
Well, I thought it was.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got some rain in the forecast. There's not a whole lot, but again, there is some rain as we head into, the next 24 hours. We're looking at clouds thickening up as we head through the afternoon. Some spotty showers in the afternoon, but then along and south of 94, looks like we'll see a steadier light rain develop as we head after sunset or right around that time frame through about midnight, 1 in the morning. We'll top out today in the low 70s with light northeast winds. Well, showers end tonight. And again, most of that along and south of 94 with lows in the lower 50s. And Friday looks nice. Sunny to partly cloudy. Highs in the mid to upper 70s. Now, Saturday, we do start to turn a little breezy out of the southwest. It's going to be a warm one with highs in the upper 70s. That's about normal for this time of the year. And then a pretty sharp cold front will arrive Saturday evening. It looks like about between 4 and 6 o'clock. So the majority of the day should be okay. But in the evening hours, as that front hits, we'll see a line of storms. Some of them could pack a little punch, not expected to be severe, at least at this standpoint. We'll keep an eye on it. And then behind that, windy conditions, much cooler as we head into Sunday and Monday. And unfortunately, we're probably going to see some more smoke that pours down out of Canada as our upper-level winds will be coming in basically straight out of Manitoba with highs in the 60s Sunday and low 70s Monday. But summer heat does return as we head into next week. And this weather is brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists. So if you're tired of the 70s, I like the 70s. You can go out golfing, hit the trails on the bike. You're not going to sweat up a storm. It's been nice, light winds for the most part. But I don't see a long stretch. Kiss the 70s goodbye, basically, as we're going to get into a more summer-like pattern here starting next week. And outside of a brief shot of Canadian air, like a day or so, I see 80s here to stay for a while.
Well, I don't think that's all bad. If we still get some cooling off at night, and as we need showers throughout the rest of the season, if they come in a timely fashion, because you'll have many farmers tell you that they get a better yield on years where they're not soaking wet, where it's maybe just a tish on the drier side, but with timely rainfall in order for that crop to develop and mature at its best level. So maybe what we're facing right now isn't completely bad. I do know a dry stretch of weather right now would be helpful for a lot of people who are getting ready to start making hay. They'd be okay with this.
Right. Now, starting next Thursday through Father's Day weekend, we do get into a slightly stormier part of the LRC cycle. That'll go through about the 20th of the month. So it does look like the Thursday through about the 20th, we're going to start to get into the stormier part of the LRC cycle. And looks like some rainfall in the order of, probably a couple inches during that time frame. We'll wait and see how that pans out. Typically, a lot of these storms, or at least thunderstorms, you know how they are. They can be very spotty. And like Gary had a great article posted on his website that, a lot of times one field will get an inch and a half, and literally maybe a couple fields over get left out entirely. You get one thunderstorm.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I
It-
mean,
Just
so
last week with some of the stuff that you and I were on the air, and it was still somewhat sunny, a little bit overcast, and 3 miles as the crow flies from me, it was a downpour.
yeah.
So those things change really rapidly. You're exactly right.
Yeah. So, but I think we'll see a little more widespread rain again over about a 10-day stretch. So that's good news for all. I know you said, like you said, for hay you want it a little drier now, but we can still use a little moisture for many of us. So we don't want it to go dry too long, and we've had a dry stretch here for the most part of about a week. So you don't want to go too much longer than a couple of weeks out of this.
Yeah, and you know what? That just makes a great case for rain barrels for all your flowers. So go out and get those rain barrels up, folks. And Don Kinsler's going to join us on the show on Monday, and I bet he can give us advice on doing some of that. 'Cause I actually have 4 at our house that we
Ah.
use,
Now,
and they're great.
is it true, and I'm sure it is because my mom wouldn't lie, but I remember growing up in my mom's garden, same thing. She had a rain barrel, and she would use that, like, so the natural rainwater much better than if you're using it out of the hose. Does it make that big of a difference on a garden, or is that a Don
Yeah,
Kinsler question?
no, it really can, and I think we can ask about it with Don because the water we drink is absolutely safe. But we do add some things to it in order, fluoride or
Hmm.
other items in order to improve its quality, particularly when we're out in areas like rural water systems. But when you use that rainwater, does it act better, you might say? Sure it does. And in fact, I have several friends who either pull water out of their lake in order to water flowers or will melt snow in order to water flowers, even throughout the
Ah,
winter months. They like that a lot better.
right. Okay, so my mom was telling the truth. All right, good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, there's something to it. And let's put it this way. From the time that we were kids until now, we've also gotten lots better at how we treat water systems and that type of thing too.
right.
We're far better at it than we were before.
Hmm.
So
I
might
still
not be
I
quite the
like
same
the
as your
rural
mom's
water system. Drinking out of the hose as a kid, it tasted so good. Oh,
well, if you were on a well, absolutely, well water, because we have a lot of farms. I can include my home farm in this, where rural water systems have come in, and it's like living on city water, right? They'll bring water in for the house, the shop, but you might still be using wells in order to water cattle, because that way you don't have quite the draw in the rural systems. So
mm.
there's a couple of different options for how you can get cattle watered too,
Ah,
or other livestock.
right, right.
So
Well,
speaking
we have a new guest coming on today. I believe so, right?
And actually, this is a guest that was a request from a listener.
Ah,
One of our morning show listeners sent me an email and said, "How do you feel about interviewing Big Guns Coffee out of North Carolina?" They so T. Shane Johnson is a veteran, but then also if you look at their website, they talk about raising their own coffee and so forth. And you don't hear about coffee operations in the United States very often. It's usually more of a Central and South America product. And so this seems like great timing. We're going to talk to T. Shane and his daughter Charlie. This is their operation, and they're going to make sure to answer questions for us. If you have questions throughout our discussion today, please be sure to reach out to us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701 293 9000. We hope that you're following along and watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Acres TV. We're under WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus. Coming up very soon, probably tomorrow on Friday, you'll see another video from us in our Here We Grow video project, because we're custom farming 20 acres of wheat this year, and we're making sure that we follow and document the whole process as we've gone from our seed going in the ground. We had a we had a hot spell. After a cold spell, now we're followed with, we had some heavy rain out there. And how's our wheat taking it? Well, pretty well. It's coming along nicely. And that's one thing for us to watch as we go through the summer season. And again, you can do that on Facebook and YouTube. Anybody watching us on Facebook and YouTube yesterday probably had to laugh a little bit, because you would see that our guest Mark and I were thoroughly enjoying ourselves out there at Rickery Rock.
yes, you were.
It's a great day. And for sponsors who are a part of our Here We Grow project, a giant thank you to Progressive Ag. They are risk management specialists and also crop insurance. So you can get a hold of Ray Grabansky and the crew over at Progressive Ag. And additionally, Vision Ford in Wahpeton. Ward joined us here just a couple weeks ago and mentioned that they extended the employee pricing for customers. So if you are looking to buy, you can either stop by the lot in Wahpeton and take a look at something for you yourself, one of the kids, or you know what? They'll bring something right out to you. You don't even have to make the trip to Wahpeton, and Vision Ford will help you out. So a lot of things going on with our Here We Grow project, and we're happy to have all of you on board with it. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Well, we're going to check in on our market report with the American Ag Network, and when we return, as promised, Big Guns Coffee, T. Shane and Charlie Johnson are going to join us to talk about this business and what's going on in North Carolina. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Midwest Ag Summit studio, and that summit taking place next Tuesday morning at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds. You will be able to join us out there from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. This is put on by the West Fargo Moorhead Chamber of Commerce. And the whole purpose is to bring us updates on exciting developments that are going on, whether it's in economics, policy, transportation, trade, and so much more. Great speakers are coming in from all over, including places like the BNSF, Duluth Seaway Port, the Federal Maritime Commission, and the Consulate General of Canada. So if you haven't made plans and or registered, please do that on the website for Fargo-Moorhead Chamber of Commerce. Well, we are joined by our guest as requested by one of our listeners, and we're joined by T. Shane Johnson with Big Guns Coffee in North Carolina. Hello, T. Shane. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How about yourself?
I think we're pretty fabulous. Dean, I hope you are as well.
Every day I wake up, I am.
So I didn't know anything about Big Guns Coffee, and that's probably because, believe it or not, I'm not a coffee drinker because this does not need any more caffeine, I'll be honest. But tell us about your business, T. Shane, and I know you mentioned this started with your daughter, so give us the background.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, well, to be clear, it's not my business. It's my daughter's business. I don't want her to hear this. She's going to join us today, but she had a little TV thing she had to do. So, but she actually she started it all. She does it all. She started it when she was 6 years old. I'd kind of written a book talking about a work-life family balance sort of thing, and after I kind of written that book, I came downstairs and she says, "Dad, I want to start a business." And I said, "All right, well, let's put it together." She says, "I want to do coffee," and she wrote down a little piece of paper. So if you came up with the name of the logo, make it happen. And she fast forward and a little cup with a little muscle arm, and she called it Big Guns Coffee, and that's kind of how it started. How we put it together. And now we're 5 years later.
At 6 years old, that is amazing. And how old's your daughter now, T. Shane?
She's getting ready to be 11 in September.
Fantastic. Wow. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So what makes a 6-year-old who maybe isn't a big coffee drinker say, this is the business I want to have?
Yeah, I think the story she tells, which is way better than what I do, is she knew she wanted to do something. I've been a motivational speaker for a large part of my life, and she's been on stage with me ever since she was little and played a part. So I do think there was probably a little bit of conditioning there as far as you know what her goals were. And I think she says I know everybody gets up in the morning and coffee is a lot of times the best part of somebody's day. And she knows, not everybody can be strong like my dad, but maybe they can feel like it, and maybe it can make their day a little bit better. And that's kind of how it started. She just wanted to try to find a way to get back and make people feel better. And at that time, she thought her dad was strong.
Well, T. Shane, first I want to say thanks for your service. Much appreciated. And the first thing I thought of was, all right, there's no coffee grown around our area. So what kind of weather does it take to grow coffee?
Yeah, so well, most of your coffee grows in kind of a drier tropical climate. Obviously, we grow coffee indoors. We're the first and only indoor hydroponic coffee farmers
Oh,
in the world. So everything that we do is a controlled environment that mimics the environment of where the coffee conditions would be based on the variety of it. But traditionally, other than maybe California or Florida or Hawaii, obviously, general conditions of North America wouldn't provide the sustainability for coffee outside.
So you said hydroponically, which some of our listeners may not be aware of what that means. And
Yeah.
I would love to have you define hydroponic. I'm familiar with it, but then also I want to know what's your growing medium? What's going into your solution to make it viable for coffee? So love to hear.
Yeah. I always forget when I say that, and I always just assume everybody knows what it means. And that's a horrible job on my part is. So hydroponics obviously is a process that the way that it's grown. Hydroponic growing has been around since the time of Babylon. In its simplest form, it's really just growing a plant, any kind of plant, or fruit or whatever you want to put into a bucket, utilizing just water. The soil traditionally that would hold the plant up would be with some type of fake, what they call medium. So sometimes it can be, clay, it could be cocoa perlite. It just depends on preference of the grower, what they want inside of there. But it's basically just there really to kind of hold the plant stable. Then the nutrients are put in based on a proprietary mix, based on the variety of the tree. So just like anything you would find in soil, we obviously take and mimic that, put it into the water, and then the water flows in and out through the root systems. Really, the biggest benefit of growing something hydroponics is utilizing 90% less water than tillable property. You don't have soil problems where if the soil's been damaged over the years because you've had a lot of different from the crops and what's been sprayed and the water that goes into it. It's a lot of different factors. Then, of course, the overall climate side of it. If it gets too hot, too cold, you can kind of control and mimic that. But really, the hydroponic system is just utilizing water and implementing specific nutrients that go into the system to allow the tree to take in kind of the maximum nutrients and vitamins it needs to grow well.
Okay, the agronomist in me has a ton of questions. Things like disease. Do you have concerns with that? Because you talked about a more tropical but dry climate for the coffee to grow. Do you run into issues with fungus and so forth in the greenhouse or in the hydroponic growing mediums?
Not really. So, we do everything indoor versus a greenhouse. You wouldn't think that makes a difference, but it does because in indoor it's sealed in. Greenhouse, a lot of times, it's outside somewhere. So if you're going in and out of the door and you don't have a breakaway area where you can spray and control what may flow in and out of that greenhouse, it makes it a lot more challenging. And of course, once it gets in the greenhouse, it's really hard to get out. I think like in anything else, it does take a certain level of maintenance. Have we seen some fungus? Sometimes, but there are certain things that you can spray, that are good for the plants that'll kind of help prevent that. But that's really just kind of maintaining the water, making sure that your emitters are clean, they don't get clogged up, and that your conditions are right. I mean, it's kind of the great thing about it is, though it is kind of set it, forget it. It's not hard to just go through the trees and just make sure that everything is nice and clean and taken care of. And of course, you can always flush the system. It's not like you're out on the farm, you can rip the tree up out of the ground and change the soil and change everything about it. If the tree dies or something happens, it usually can get into all the trees. We can isolate a tree really, really fast if there's a problem. We can switch out trees, we can change buckets, we can clean systems. So I think
Wow.
we've found that it's significantly less when there comes to any type of threats to the tree with doing that.
Are coffee plants big water consumers?
Ours are. um, I, I, I would say, I would say no. I think the big part is, especially coffees. Like think about it in Africa. When you have a certain variety that grows in Africa, you're going to find droughts are going to come quite often. So the tree is going to then prompt to go into flowering stage and fruit stage. Like anything else, it's seasonal. But we found, what's funny is when we did this, and still even now, there was no data to follow, right? So, I get all these calls from agronomists and farmers, and everybody has asked me 1,000 questions about these trees because there's nothing really to kind of reference back to. There's no
Right.
blueprint to say, well, we've grown this and this where it's been. And so when you think of it, a lot of people compare apples to apples, thinking like, all right, well, if we grow coffee out here, it's the same. And it's like, well, it's not. It's a totally different way to grow coffee. And the trees have never, until I would say us and, maybe somebody in their closet somewhere, they've never really had this kind of love and care. And they seem to just absolutely enjoy the water. I mean, once we put them in the system, I've noticed even if you do some transplants, if you find a variety and you do somewhat of a transplant, they just thrive on it. You could pump them all day, every day, and there's never any wilting, there's never overwatering. They seem to really, really enjoy it.
There's so many things to ask about this because it's just unfamiliar to our region. So, folks, if you have questions, do not be afraid to call us, as we mentioned on the JLA insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Don't forget that you can call JLA insurance directly if you have questions about your crop insurance, especially because Nate's a farmer too. He can help you right out. Don't go anywhere. We're going to hear the news, come back, and visit more about Big Guns Coffee out of North Carolina. And sitting in for me at the Midwest Ag Summit studio today is Cooper, our little Highlander cow mascot. I'm not there. Dean's holding down the fort, and Cooper is his sidekick for the day. So those of you watching on the live stream get a chance to see what they're up to. And I hear we have a caller, Dean. Do you want to get a chance to visit with that person?
Yeah, Tom, welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Do you have a question for our guest?
Sure do. So maybe you guys covered this, and I asked Addison, and he wasn't sure. How does the coffee grower, how does he keep the trees vertical in water?
Ah,
That
I
well,
think
the medium holds it in. Yeah, the
so
medium
when you
holds it
say
in
the
a bucket,
medium,
like a. Yeah, I'm sorry. The fake soil holds it in the bucket, just like it would if you were to put it into a planting pot. The same way, holds it up and keeps it straight up growing. And the root system basically fills the bottom of the bucket nice and tight, so that way it doesn't spill over or tip over any.
How tall are the trees?
Depends on the variety, but we basically prune them back to run about 3 to 5 feet.
Okay, so even though it's hydroponic, it's still got a medium in the bottom of the bucket.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Very interesting. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. And T-Shane, I got a question here. So how long does it take from planting to harvesting the coffee?
So that also depends on variety, but I would say just probably like almost like a peach tree, probably about 4 years from the time it takes from seed all the way to yield.
Wow. Okay.
so what's going on when it comes to I hear uh, ads and people talk about their medium roast, their French roast, their Arabica coffee beans. What are you raising for coffee beans, and how does it get to be any of those things? Again, remember, I'm a tea drinker. I haven't the faintest idea how this works.
Yeah, so coffee's been super saturated and over marketed and gimmicked quite a bit. It's kind of what led us to starting this from a growth standpoint, because when people read about coffee, they don't understand the massive amount of intricacies that come with just getting it to your cup. And then of
Hmm.
course the marketing buzzwords that are played on order for a consumer to buy in the CPG world or consumer packaged goods world, or a retail cafe. You've got to, when you have a commodity that anyone everybody can pretty much mimic or copy, you've got to start coming up with very unique ways to sell that product, right? It's like a tomato. It's like, well, why am I going to buy this guy's tomatoes versus this guy's tomatoes, other than, maybe they look a little bit different. So you've got to create something that makes it more unique. And I think coffee's been way oversaturated with that between the different types of roast and the caffeine content and Arabica versus Robusta. So it's like interesting you bring up Arabica, because you'll start to notice in a lot of media right now, everyone's talking about Robusta versus Arabica. Well, Robusta has been around forever, just like Arabica has been, but people have always gotten Arabica just because the coffee's currently, it was cheaper and it has a better tasting profile. But because of the problem with the weather and tariffs and everything else, everyone's kind of switched to Robusta, because Robusta was a lower grade coffee that had double the caffeine content, but it was cheaper. But people didn't like the taste of it because they liked the Arabica. So now media is switching to market Robusta to sound like, wait a minute, this is something new that we didn't see. When in fact, it's never been new. It's just trying to drive a price point down so that the consumer can try to get something that's an everyday low price. So coffee can, as it goes through the processes, there's a lot of things that can really make a difference into where it gets to, just from roasting, just from cooking it alone. Set aside the farming side of it, of different flavor profiles. A lot of people grew up during, that kind of like when coffee picked its boom up in the 80s and 90s, that really strong black bold was pitched, the real man's American coffee. When in fact, anything that you cook, that you burn is never going to have all of the valued additives to it, right? Because you've burned or cooked it out. So, when you think about coffee, most people will say, well, I want the caffeine kick. Well, that depends on the variety of coffee. Not all coffee has strong caffeine. And if you would go to a Robusta. And if you wanted more caffeine, you actually wouldn't go to a dark roast, like a French press or a Vienna roast, because you cooked it all out. You would go a little bit more of a light or a medium. But you can't go too light, because light you can't put into a espresso, because it's still got too much green and water in it. It can clog up your machines. And,
Oh,
so there's all these different factors to coffee as a whole. It's like most people say, oh, I go to Italy and I've had the best coffee ever. And I laugh. I'm like, well, they don't grow coffee in Italy, so why do you think the coffee is so much better there? They still import it the same way. And that's because the Italians came up with the espresso machine. They're the ones that built the espresso machine, put it together, and then found a different way to pull imported coffee to make it taste a little bit better. So you got to be careful getting down the coffee rabbit hole. You'll you'll be like an Alice in Wonderland with it.
Well, there's so many amazing things. Like I'm thinking to myself, where do you get the plants? Or have you begun to almost breed your own to bring in what you need for a yield?
That's right. So, of course, we've been doing this behind the scenes for 5 years, my daughter and I. So, we've grown trees and now we're in the, stage of cuttings and, propagation and taking some of our cherries and reproduce them back into, our producing trees. This is not a fast process for anybody that's like, oh, I want to go out and do this. It's a pretty lengthy process. And it seems like we just started doing it, but we know we've been doing it behind the scenes for a very long time. So at this point, we have our cuttings from our mother trees. If we try to grow different varieties, like right now we're working on growing some Kona. I had some Kona trees come in from Hawaii, and starting to kind of put those things and, grow those and transplant some of those just to see how they do. But coffee trees, they're not here, so they're hard to get from different countries to get shipped in. So sometimes you got to start from seed, which is a problem unto itself because you got to germinate those, and some of those take a really long time to germinate just to start to get the seedlings out, and you got to assume that they're good seeds. So coffees
Oh,
make really
yeah.
great in-home plants. So you probably find a couple of mature ones online. I know sometimes we sell them just locally, and they do really great in the house. They're a beautiful, beautiful plant, but like I said, that's what makes it challenging. You've got to, now that we've got our mother trees, it's kind of put us in a good spot, but it took us a while to kind of get.
So how do you harvest? Is it all hand harvest in what you're doing? Is it a continual harvest so that you're constantly being able to bring in fresh beans, or do you have a time where there's a gap because of the season, maybe not enough daylight is affecting you, something like that?
No, it's a 24/7 harvest. I mean, you basically layer out the harvest based on the growth of the trees. So, again, 5 years, we're just starting to kind of see that come through. So, now we've layered those trees based on production. Obviously, the sunlight doesn't play a factor because we recreate that. So the idea is that we're mimicking and allowing the trees to be in the environment 24/7 based on, switching the patterns and times of the lights. But we just mimic its environment and grows. But that's the big plus. I mean, that was a large part of. I don't want to say it's a large part of why we did it, but it's a large part of who we are now. Is obviously being a disabled veteran and hiring disabled veterans. We wanted to be out and going through farming programs and seeing how farming is hard. You're out in the sun, you're breaking your back, you're driving a tractor. Well, if you have somebody comes and sits in a wheelchair, that makes it pretty challenging to hop on a horse or hop on a tractor or do those things, but they still want to be able to farm and be a part of it. With this, you're indoors. The environment's great. They can work 24/7 if they want to. Meaning that the weather isn't indicative to it rains and now everybody's got to kind of come inside. They can continue to, be a part of the project and have different times of the day that they want to do it. And it creates a lot of accessibility. It's really just taking innovation and tradition and mixing them together and allowing everybody to be a part of it.
And T-Shane, you mentioned earlier that you do a lot of motivational speaking. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. My daughter's I'm gonna get in trouble talking about myself on this thing. So yeah. Uh, so yes, I have been a speaker for quite some time. It was a large part of my story when I served in the military. I was severely injured, attempted murder, and
Oof.
died and came back to life, and was homeless, and ended up writing a couple books and built a $300 million in sales company out of a Dunkin' Donuts while I was living in the woods.
Wow.
Um, you know, homeless. So I always found a way. I'm a massive introvert. As much as I respect these things, I always hate them because it's not my normal personality. I'm very much marine. Very much marine farmer. Live out in the woods. Love to talk to plants. Don't like to talk to people. But it was when you get a second chance at life and you've served with a lot of guys that didn't come back and don't get the time to spend with their daughters like I do, and their family. It's an opportunity to try to pay that rent each month that's due for that second chance. So, I share my story, and it seems to inspire and motivate people, and it works through me. It's not necessarily me, but it works through me. and it allows me an opportunity to spend a lot of great time with my daughter and spread a message and again pay back for that second chance.
Now, did you say you wrote a book on that too, T. Shane?
Yes, sir. I've written 5 books, but each one of them kind of had their own little thing. But the biggest one was Hike Across America, 3,000 Miles for Your Why. That was basically just a culmination of things. I have also ran across America a couple of different times and done a few world records, and each year was a different thing to raise money for different causes to support those in need. So my first book was really kind of talking about my childhood experiences growing up in the middle of my family was cattle ranchers and orange growers, and my whole family was rodeoers and country music singers. So I did not follow that path. I was the black sheep. I always joke going in the Marine Corps was way easier than working on a ranch. I
You're
took the
not
easy way out and
completely
joined the Marine
wrong.
Corps.
I will say that. Yes, you're not
It's,
completely wrong.
that's that is hard work. My dad to this day, he's replaced both of his hips. He still ride horses. He works cows on 18,000 acres in Florida. He loves it. They're horse people are psychopaths. They're something else. They really have a passion for it. It's amazing. It's frustrating because my daughter's now got the bug, and I thought I was going to get out of it, and now her and her granddad are all horse stuff, and it's a nightmare.
And T. Shane, I'm looking on your website. Where can we get copies of your book? Do you sell that
Oh,
on your website?
Amazon. Yeah. My website is tshaneinspires.com.
Okay,
You can get it there or on Amazon. You can search my name and find my books there as well.
gotcha. And if people are interested in your product, your website again that people can go visit.
Yes, sir. So biggunscoffee.com.
All right.
There's a lot of things to write down there, you guys, and making sure that we follow through, place the orders, enjoy the product. If you are a coffee drinker, my challenge to you is to go ahead and place an order and tell us what you think. Send us some feedback. I'd be very curious.
I'm getting his book. I want to read about this. You're an inspiration. That's just seriously. I mean, wow. I just got the chills. I can't wait to get that.
Well, thank you. Don't judge me too bad after you read it. Yeah.
No, not at all.
No, it's got some pretty crazy stories growing up in the middle of nowhere. Maybe some people can resonate with, some can't. But my dad was a single dad, and you grew up working cows, you grew up on a ranch, you grew up in the middle of nowhere. There's always some crazy stories or things that happen that normal people don't get to experience. And for me, it was made for a great story. Made for a great story.
Yeah, no doubt. And how far you've come, that's an inspiration within itself. And to have your daughter working with you, it doesn't get much better than that. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Watching her and watching the things that she does is just absolutely amazing. It's a blessing for sure.
That's great. That's great. Well, T. Shane, thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And when we come back, we'll have a final recap on the weather, and we've got a big announcement that's going to be coming up later this afternoon on the Jay Thomas Show. We'll have more details on that coming up after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:53 in the afternoon, and temperatures out there right around 70-degree mark. We do have some light rain on the radar south of Jamestown down towards Ellendale, and another batch over towards Hankinson, all moving northeastward. Also a little bit just to the west of Carrington, moving northeastward towards New Rockford. And again, we'll see this light rain, and most of it light, is going to be overspreading generally the 94 corridor southward as we head into the evening hours. So keep that in mind. If you have outdoor plans this afternoon, I think you're okay for the next few hours. And then we'll see our chances of our rain chances increase as we head towards the evening hours and into the early overnight with possibly a quarter, half inch down along the South Dakota border. But as you get up towards the 94 corridor, should be less than a tenth of an inch. So not a lot of rain, but just a little bit, enough to kind of just wet things up just a touch.
Well, besides paying attention to the weather, I believe it is Thursday, right? Because I'm having trouble with this game, but I think it's Thursday. I think there's sort of a big deal coming here very soon this afternoon.
At 4:20 on the Jay Thomas Show. What is Jay going to tell us about, Bridgette? We can't say quite yet, can we?
Nope, we really can't. But I think what's important is I get so many calls about food inflation, food prices. We just had this conversation about coffee with T. Shane Johnson. And if you've been paying attention to coffee prices in the grocery store, if you bought your Folgers Classic Roast at $12 a container and now it's $18, we can see where some of these things have gone up significantly. What could possibly make an impact for listeners? Well, I bet they're going to have to wait till 4:20 to find out.
And it's like I said, when the memo was put out to our staff, I asked if it was a typo. Is there? This seems way too good to be true. So a big announcement on a contest that we're going to be running, and you'll want to hear all about that. Like Bridgette said, 4:20 today on the Jay Thomas Show. So make sure you tune in for that. And well, I mean, weather-wise, we're looking at a halfway decent weekend coming our way with the pick day being Saturday. I know a lot of stuff, we're entering that summer season. We've got Rib Fest in town. We've got some other festivals. A lot of people want to be out and about. And I think Saturday's going to be your pick day before a cold front comes through towards late afternoon. We're looking at 4 or 5 where we could see some thunderstorms, a quick-moving line of thunderstorms. Could pack a little punch. I'm not expecting anything severe at this point. We'll analyze it further tomorrow and go into more detail. And then Sunday just looks to be, I'll just put it looks like crap. Sorry. We're looking at cloudy skies, windy, on and off showers. And I do believe by Sunday, if not early, by late in the day, we'll more than likely see that smoke return from Canada as our upper level winds are going to be coming right out of Manitoba. So whatever, and I took a look at the smoke forecast, and there's quite a bit of smoke, and it's dense to the north of Lake Winnipeg. And I'm pretty sure that some of that is going to be drifting south into our area by Sunday. It won't last long. Sunday into Monday, and then the jet stream lifts back north, and we warm things up to more summer-like readings next week, back into the 80s. So if you're sick of the 70s, we've got more sunshine and 80s on tap for next week.
There is so much good coming because it's the summer. This is the way things look for us, and we're excited to be able to share all of that. Also, don't forget, if you're out checking livestock, you always keep an eye on your fences. Well, one thing you also want to make sure to do is check on your software, what's going on with your email, your carefulness when transmitting sensitive documents, and you can do that by doing a fence check assessment on Tech Support Farm's website. So go to techsupportfarm.com, look at it. They can help you make decisions if you need more support than what you've got. And also, that's a great assessment to show your insurance agent if you're thinking about doing something along the lines of cybersecurity insurance. Is it a good buy or maybe not? So check that out. Now, one short thing is that I'm not sure I've had a chance to talk about, but Starlink has made a deal with Case New Holland. And so they're going to help bring solid connectivity to farm equipment, tractors, and more. Whether you're Case or New Holland, they just inked that deal, and many who use Starlink for their farm shops say it's a great idea. So look forward to watching that happen if you drive any of those equipment.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. For Bridgette, myself, Have a great rest of the afternoon, but don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.